A very good evening to all pious yogis. All yogis have been practicing Metta Bhavana for about 3 days. All yogis shall begin the practice of Vipassana Bhavana tomorrow. So this evening I shall explain the practical aspects of Vipassana Bhavana. First, meditators have to understand some differences between Samatha Bhavana and Vipassana Bhavana. Metta, loving kindness, is an object of Samatha Bhavana, concentration meditations. So when meditators are practicing Metta Bhavana, they should not be mindful of other phenomena or any kinds of sensation, feelings, mental states, and so on. For example, if the mind is wandering or thinking, then Metta meditators must bring the mind back. In other words, to not pay attention to that wandering mind or thinking mind, but must continue the practice of Metta Bhavana. It's because the aim of practicing Samatha Bhavana is to attain calmness of the mind or peacefulness of mind. So it's because meditators want to attain calmness of the mind, peacefulness mind. That's why Samatha meditators concentrate the mind on one object only. And the important aims of practicing Metta Bhavana is to overcome dosa. Dosa means hatred or aversion, resentments, thoughts of ill will, and so on. And the objects of Metta Bhavana are living beings. For example, a person or group of people or beings staying at certain location or all living beings. So the objects must be external or not internal. So the object, for example, a person is a cause, the arising of the thoughts of metta in the mind is the effect. If there is no object such as a person or all beings, then it's not possible to develop that thoughts of loving kindness. It's because there's an object, that's why meditators can develop the thoughts of loving kindness by mentally wishing that object. For example, may so and so be well, happy, peaceful, may so and so be healthy always, and so on. But when meditators practice Vipassana Bhavana, meditators must take objects that are internal as an object of Vipassana. In other words, the objects of Vipassana meditation are mental and physical phenomena, nama rupa. And there are varieties of mental phenomena and physical phenomena. All objects or phenomena of Vipassana meditation must be absolute reality. So there are varieties of mental and physical phenomena. Meditators can't keep the mind with one phenomenon or one object. It's because every object has the nature of arising and passing away, has the characteristic of unsatisfactory and not self. So there are so many objects or phenomena, meditators may be confused which object that should be mindful or which object that they can let them begin the practice of vipassana meditation. So meditators must begin with a clear object that can be easily perceived by the mind. So first I shall explain about the practice of sitting meditations. Every sitting meditation, meditators may begin the sitting meditation by practicing metta bhavana for about 15 minutes. So meditators begins the practice of metta by wishing himself or herself, for example, may I be well, happy, peaceful, may I be healthy always, may I be well, happy, peaceful, may I be healthy always, for about 3 minutes. So meditators should not focus the attention on the words or the metta phrase. We can say that each mental wish represents a thought of loving kindness. So it's because one has thoughts of welfare and happiness of a person, or one has the feeling of loving kindness for that person. That's why one is able to wish that person be well, happy, peaceful, be healthy always. So that's why metta is a mental state wishing or reflecting on the welfare and happiness of the living beings or the objects of loving kindness. So meditators may practice metta for themselves for about 3 minutes. Then they may choose a good object of loving kindness and practice metta for this good object of loving kindness for about 10 minutes or slightly longer. Usually a good object of loving kindness could be a respected person, such as respected teacher or respected friends, or one's or mother or father, or for example, if the object of the good object of loving kindness is a respected teacher, whenever you think of that teacher, there's a feeling of, for example, respect, gratitude for his teaching, for his encouraging words or inspiring teaching, and so on. If meditators are new to the practice of metta bhavana, then they may spend about around 3 minutes or 4 minutes in order to recollect the virtues of the respected teacher. So meditators, for example, may recollect the encouraging words given by the teacher, or the words that give rise to the confidence in the practice. So because of these recollections of the encouraging words or words that give rise to confidence, meditators could arouse a strong feeling of metta, wishing the teachers be healthy always, and so on. Or if one chooses respected friends, or someone that he has this feeling of gratitude, or they means feel grateful for what this friend has done for him or her, in his life or his career, then because of that feeling of gratitude, being grateful to these friends, then that could help to arouse the strong thoughts of metta by wishing that friends again and again. So meditators develop the thoughts of loving kindness towards that person, wishing that person, for example, may my teacher so and so be well, happy, peaceful, may so and so be healthy always for about 10 minutes. Then meditators begins the practice of vipassana meditation. So when meditators switch over to the practice of vipassana meditation, if at that moment there is no distinct object, the meditators may begin the practice of sitting meditation by being mindful of the movement of dormants, rising, falling. Sometimes meditators have finished practicing 15 minutes of metta. Then when meditators want to begin the practice of vipassana meditation, at that time the meditators realize that the mind is thinking of something, then they should be mindful of that thinking and know it as thinking. So it's important to mindful and note that thinking mind until it has disappeared. When the thinking mind has disappeared, then meditators will direct the attention of mind to the movement of dormants again. To the movement of dormants, if the movements appear clearly. Movements of the dormants is the basic object of sitting meditation. Movement of dormants is not the most important object of vipassana meditation. It's only one of the physical phenomena.
ถือได้ว่าเป็นสภาวะธรรมทางกายอันหนึ่งนะคะเท่านั้น
But it's known as basic object is because this movement of dormants can be perceived quite easily by vipassana meditators. So, this movement of dormants is known as wind element in the belly. As taught in the scriptures.
Not
it's known as wind element in the belly, as taught in the scriptures. In the scripture means that in the teachings of the Buddha, as long as we are alive, we have breath, the abdomen will move by itself. For example, meditators may feel there's an expansion of abdomen or the contraction of the abdomen. So here we do not pay any attention to the in-breath and the out-breath. We should pay attention to the movements of the abdomen. So here mindfulness in Pali is known as sati. So mindfulness is attention of mind at that present moment. The present moment's attention. There's no mindfulness or sati. So in other words, we can only pay attention to something that's arising or happening in the mind or the body at that present moment. We can't mindful of something that had passed away, nor we can't mindful or pay attention to something which is not yet a reason arising at that time. And at the beginning of the practice, the mindfulness is quite weak. So we may have to use a technique. There's no mental noting or labeling. For example, when meditators perceive there's a movement of abdomen, for for the expansion of abdomen, then meditators may know it as rising. So that word rising is a concept, it's not ultimate reality. The movement is the ultimate reality. It's one of the ultimate realities. So meditators should not be mindful of that labeling or that word rising. Meditators should be mindful of the actual movements, the actual process of rising. So that mental noting or labeling rising is to help the mind, keeping the mindfulness with the movements of rising, experiencing the actual process of the rising movements. So the most important is to keeping the mindfulness with the process of the rising movements. So meditators should not drag the labelings in order to go along the movements or to synchronize with the process of the movements. So meditators should not drag the labeling. So if meditators drag the labelings in order to go along with the rising movements, it can become a distraction and can be tiring to the mind. So when meditators could perceive the movements of rising, falling clearly, then they should be mindful of the movement rising and falling and know it as it really occurs. So the most important is to perceive the movements well and then make the mental noting or labelings. At the beginning of practice, meditators may not able to make the mental noting right at the beginning of the process of the movements. It's because meditators have to perceive the movements first, then they make the mental noting. Sometimes the process of movements could be quite short or quite rapid. As soon as meditators be aware that short process movements or rapid process movements, and meditators have not yet made the mental labeling, that short process movements or rapid process movements have passed away, then meditators should not make mental labeling anymore. Meditators can make labeling or noting because an object has appeared and in the progress and has not yet disappeared. So meditators need not have to make noting labeling if the object had passed away or had disappeared. So movement of abdomen serve as a basic object of sitting meditation. Movement of abdomen serve as a basic object of sitting meditation. Whenever there's another object which is more distinct than the movement of abdomen, for example, pain or coldness, which is more distinct than the movement of abdomen, the meditator should be mindful of the other distinct object and note it as it is. For example, pain, 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 and so on. And in the practice of vipassana meditation, be mindful of whatever mental state that's arising at that moment is very important, more important than mindful of any body object or sensation at that moment. Meditation is mental training or mental culture. So be mindful of whatever mental state that's arising at that moment is very important. If there's no mental states, then meditators should be very mindful of the physical body object or body sensation, whichever is more distinct. Sometimes meditators could not perceive the movements of abdomen clearly, or it seems the movements has stopped. Then meditators should not keep the mindfulness or the attention in the area of the abdomen. At that time, meditators should not purposely take a long breath or strong breathing in order to create a clear movement of the abdomen. Meditators should realize the movement of abdomen as a natural process. Meditators need not have to create an object or searching for an object. Sometimes the object doesn't appear clearly, so some meditators purposely make an effort in order to make the object clearer. Actually, the golden principle of the Vipassana meditation is to be mindful of every object as it really occurs. When the mindfulness is not well developed, that's why meditators cannot see clearly every object as it really occurs. So meditators should put forth effort in order to strengthen the power of mindfulness, so that the mindfulness is could see every object clearly. If the mindfulness is weak, then meditators cannot see clearly every object as it really occurs. So the immediate purpose of this meditation is to develop the mindfulness, to strengthen the power of mindfulness. So when the mindfulness is strengthened and with deep concentration, meditators shall be able to mindful of every object clearly or as it really occurs. So if the movement of the mind is not clear at all, or sometimes the movement has stopped, then meditators may have to direct the mind to the alternative. Instead of mindful of the unclear movements or the movement has stopped, the meditators may mindful or take the sitting postures and two touching points as the alternative. Sitting posture is a very clear object. So meditators be aware the upper part bodies and note it as sitting. Meditators need not have to visualize the postures or the form, merely knowing oneself is sitting with the upright postures and note it as sitting. Then in the next moment, meditators may mindful of one clear touching point. So, for example, touching of the hand to the knee. So be aware of that touching and note it as touching. Then meditators be mindful of the other touching point, of the touching, for example, the right hand with the knee, and note it as touching. And then be mindful of the sitting posture again, note it as sitting. Then be mindful of the first touching point again, touching, and so on. So meditators have to choose two clear touching points based on personal experience. So they have to fix two touching points so that my meditators can mindful and note sitting, touching smoothly. If meditators keep on changing the touching points, then it may cause some disruptions to the flow of the mindfulness. For example, if meditators did not fix two touching points, then they may mindful sitting. Then in the next moments, the meditators might be thinking or searching for one touching point. So when meditators thinking or searching for a touching point, they will cause disruptions to the flow of mindfulness. So whenever the movement of movements is not clear at all, or sometimes the movement has stopped, and at the same time there is no clear other clear object, the meditators should mindful of the sitting postures, not sitting, then be mindful of the first touching point, touching, be mindful of second touching point, touching, and so on. Whenever meditators are mindful of the sitting postures or the touching point, then meditators perceive the movement of abdomens clearly again. Then the mindful movement of the abdomens again. Sometimes meditators are mindful of the sitting postures or the touching point. Then there's a stronger bodily object appear, for example pain. Then meditators mindful of no pain, and so on. So meditators have to be mindful what's being experienced clearly at that moment. So it's important to mindful of any object based on personal experience at that moment. Meditators have to let go of the past experience so that meditators can pay bare awareness or bare attention to whatever object is arising at that moment. If meditators are mindful of any object, at the same time thinking about the past experience, then they may not able to mindful of that object well. That's why meditators have to mindful of every object, as if that object is a new object. In that way, meditators shall be able to gain new experience or better experience. And during sitting meditation, meditators need to be patient with physical discomfort or physical pain. Meditators should not purposely move or adjusting the sitting postures in order to relieve the pain or the numbness and so on. If meditators do feel the pain or any kinds of physical discomfort is unbearable, then they may stop the sitting and proceed to the practice of walking meditation and so on. But if the posture is drooping or slouching, is no longer upright, then meditators may straighten up the postures with mindfulness. On the first day, second day of vipassana meditation, meditators may sit for 1 hour. Only meditators can sit well 1 hour, then they can consider to increase the duration of sitting gradually, for example by 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But if meditators could not sit for 1 hour on the first day or second day of the vipassana meditation, because of unbearable pain or physical discomfort, then they may shorten the times, for example to 40 minutes or 45 minutes. Every sitting meditation should be preceded by 1 hour walking meditations. So meditators should walk in their own walking path or walking up and down. First, meditators must mindful note standing while standing at the beginning of walking path, or be mindful note standing between 5 to 10 times. So at that time, meditators should not visualize the standing postures, should not do the scanning of the postures. Then meditators begins to walk, slow down the step naturally. So meditators perceive there's movements of the right foot, then they know it as right. But it's important to keep the mindfulness with the process of the movements. When that movements ended, then meditators move the left foot naturally, perceiving this movements of left foot and note it as left. So meditators should not purposely control the movements in order to know it precisely. If meditators purposely control the movements so that he or she can know it precisely, then this is the practice is not so truthful. So the stepping is not too long, not too short. So be mindful and note the movements as it really occurs, left, right. Reaching the end of walking path, meditators should mindful and note the standing postures as it really occurs, standing about between 5 to 10 times. Then be mindful of the turning movements of the body. Note it's turning. So when meditators are facing the directions that they came, then they should stop and mindful note standing again between 5 to 10 times. Then begin to walk again, noting left, right. So meditators be mindful and note left, right for about 15 minutes. Then they slow down the stepping and be mindful of 3 process of movements. They are lifting, pushing, dropping. Meditators need not have to lift the foot too high nor too low. Be mindful of lifting up the heel, then aware the lifting up the toes, keeping the foot parallel to the floor, and push it forward slowly, and then place the whole foot down and note it as dropping. As soon as the foot touching the floor, for example the left foot touching the floor, then meditators may lift the right foot at the back in the next movement. Meditators need not have to purposely sense the floor, whether the surface of the floor is rough, smooth, or hot or cold, and so on. So meditators' concern is the process of movements, left, right, and then lifting, pushing, dropping. Meditators may mindful of left, right for about 15 minutes. Then be mindful of lifting, pushing, droppings for the rest of the time. So meditators may practice walking in this way on the first day and the second day of Vipassana meditation. So when meditators could mindful note this process of movements well and able to slow down more and more, then they may increase the objects of walking meditation. And it's also very important to mindful and note whatever mental state arising during walking meditations. When meditators perceive there's a thinking mind, then meditators have to stop walking, but should mindful and note the thinking mind as soon as possible. At the beginning of the Vipassana meditation retreats, meditators may not be able to mindful and note the mental states, for example, thinking mind precisely. Sometimes the mind has been thinking for quite some time, then meditators come to realize it. During the practice of Vipassana meditation, meditators have to realize that whatever mental state is also a natural mental process. In other words, meditators should not purposely stop the thinking or cut off the thinking and bring the mindfulness back to the walking meditation, or during sitting meditation bring the mindfulness back to the basic object. When meditators are able to mindful and note every mental state during Vipassana meditation, then they would gain two benefits. One benefit is that when meditators could mindful and note whatever mental states arising, then gradually mental states such as thinking, wandering mind will be getting less and less. The meditators will begin to gain better mindfulness and concentration. Then the other benefit is realization that every mental state is not an everlasting mental process. It's also subject to arising and passing away. It's unsatisfactory. It also has the nature or characteristics of not self. When meditators could realize the true natures of the mental states clearly, then they would make more and more progress in the practice of Vipassana meditation. During walking meditation, if there's another stronger object arising in the body, for example, itchy sensation, the meditators have to stop the walking and be mindful, note itchy, and so on. If there's a desire to scratch, be mindful and note desire, and so on. At the end of walking meditation, it's important to maintain the same steps. For example, lifting, pushing, dropping. Meditators to sustain that steps, that pace of steps to the place of sitting. Sustain the pace. For example, at the end walking meditation, meditators are mindful of lifting, pushing, dropping. They should continue to note lifting, pushing, dropping to the place of sitting. Meditators should not reduce the object, for example, to left, right, walking in a very relaxed manner to the place of sitting. In other words, it's important to carry forward that mindfulness and concentration from walking meditation into the sitting meditation. So meditators have to sit down slowly, mindfully, so that there's no disruptions to the mindfulness. When meditators who practice the walking meditation very well, and they are able to carry forward the mindfulness and concentration into the sitting meditation, then they would most likely they would get a better result in the sitting meditation. Then, besides practicing walking meditation, sitting meditation, meditators also need to mindful of doing their daily activities or doing their routine activities. And this aspect of practice, mindfulness of daily activities, is more important than walking and sitting meditation, because by being mindful of the daily activities well, the meditators will be able to develop more and more constant and continuous mindfulness. So constant and continuous mindfulness is another important factor to make progress in vipassana meditation. But sometimes meditators have to consider the time and the place. In other words, sometimes they need to practice general mindfulness. Sometimes they should practice mindfulness in more details. So this is known as a clear comprehension of suitability.
Clear
comprehension of suitability. In those meditators have to consider whether or not the time and the place are suitable to slow down more and more, or just merely slow down in general. For example, if meditators wish to pay homage to the Buddha at the beginning of sitting, then meditators can slow down their actions day by day, because meditators are paying homage at their own place. But sometimes meditators are using the facilities, for example, taking shower. So meditators may not have to slow down very much, but at the time they should learn to practice general mindfulness or general awareness. So if meditators take interest in the practice of a mindfulness of daily activities and be able to develop mindfulness in more details better and better, then they could make more progress. It's important to develop momentum mindfulness for a period of time. For example, meditators may have fixed a period of time. For example, afternoon, from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So meditators put more effort into the practice during that period of time. So at that period of time, meditators be mindful and note in details more precisely while practicing walking meditation, sitting meditation, or doing some daily activities, for example, paying homage to the Buddha and so on. So when meditators could develop momentum mindfulness very well for a period of time, they may be able to gain some concentration and experiences in the vipassana meditations. And then they may have confidence and interest to do it for longer and longer period of time. So in brief, the first important factors to make progress is able to mindful and note whatever mental state is arising during vipassana meditations. The second important factor is constant and continuous mindfulness. So meditators need to develop more and more momentum mindfulness in the daily activities, as well as for a period of time. Then when there's a progress in the momentum mindfulness, meditators shall gain better results from the practice of walking and sitting meditation. The practice of vipassana meditation is beyond thinking, analyzing, or applying any preconceptions or preconceived ideas into the practice. So it's important to put aside whatever theoretical knowledge you have gained from reading or listening from someone, or whatever preconceived idea you have about the practice, you have to put them aside. So you have to realize the true nature of mental physical phenomena or namarupa through your personal experience. So meditators have only one duty or one job to do. Let's be mindful again for the whole day. In other words, from the moment of waking up till the moment of the falling asleep at night. So meditators need to develop stronger and stronger momental mindfulness for longer and longer period of time. So I wish all meditators rightly understand the practice of vipassana meditation, so that meditators would gain more and more personal experiential knowledge and realizing the true nature of mental and physical phenomena, overcoming their own mental defilements, and finally attain ultimate purity of mind eventually.
สาธุ สาธุ สาธุ